Tonight on Revolutionaries.
And we launched it on April 1st of 2001. And for, a good 20, 25 seconds, the site was up. Well, then we went down. Yeah, that was sad. And then we went back up, and then we went down, and it was a pretty brutal first day.
Major League Baseball is pioneering one of the most advanced digital systems in the world. From video streaming to instant replay, MLB Advanced Media has changed not just baseball, but all of digital sports. We talk with CEO Bob Bowman and learn why baseball has moved to the front of the pack. Major funding for Revolutionaries is provided by the Intel Corporation.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Delighted to be here.
How are you?
We're great. But I would say this, that we are delighted to be here and make the time to be here, all kidding aside, that we're in a great part of the country for those of us who are in the digital space. A lot of great things have happened already that we are grateful for every day. People who are brilliant and hardworking and visionary that help us get started. And we suspect the next 20 years are going to be even more exciting. So we're great to be in this part of the country. We love where we are in New York, but it's great to be here, really the hotbed of a lot of great innovations.
You grew up as a baseball-loving boy, didn't you? Only a few miles from the stadium in Milwaukee. I read somewhere that you went to something like 70 games a year, and there are only 82 home games a year. So that means you pretty much saw every baseball game in your hometown.
I grew up in Milwaukee. I rode my bike to County Stadium, which is a big old municipal stadium in sort of the outskirts of Milwaukee that I rode it to we went to 70, 80 games every year. There's no game, I love every sport. I love every form of media, virtually every form of media. But I love baseball, I love the theater, and it was a lot of fun. And Bud Selig and I got to know each other then because he owned the Milwaukee Brewers, and he's now obviously commissioner for the last 22, 3 years, whatever it is. And as I say, we were in the same stadium, and we were a mere 440 feet apart. He was in the owner's box behind home plate, and I was in the center field metal bleachers, paying $2 for a ticket and $2 for a beer. But our love of baseball is comparable, and I learned a lot from him watching the Brewers, and obviously learned a lot from him working for him the last 13 years.
Now, how did he have the foresight to create this entity and to pursue this strategy? First of all, let's take everybody back to the year 2000 or so, because that wasn't the best stretch of time for internet companies or internet strategies to be launched.
You know, it's interesting. The internet was dead in 2000. The internet was huge in 1999 and dead in 2000. It's like having a teenage girl that it's this BFF today. I don't even know her tomorrow, but it was. I know those of you who have teenagers, you know what I'm talking about. So it was dead. It was everything in '99. Put a .com after your name. I mean, if you had your computerhistorymuseum.com, you'd be worth $4 billion in 1999. In 2000, it was worthless because the internet died and we were gone. And he had the foresight to do it, not just before other commissioners. Certainly he beat the other sports, and that's, our DNA is to try and follow on that vision. But he beat other media companies. If you think about the media companies that we all know, they weren't really doing digital media. And some of them are just now catching up. They've come a long way and they're really smart. But he was not just years ahead, he was a decade ahead of some media companies. And so that gave us a lot of ability. And so I think no one really knew what it was, and in some ways we're still discovering it every day. But he got the owners to say, as he always does, what's good for the game is good for you. And they voted 30-0 to centralize all these rights. And I don't think he sort of knew then that it would grow into something big. And we didn't really know. We came in and we had a lot of fun along the way.
If you had to describe the status of where baseball was digitally on the internet, on the World Wide Web in 2000, where would you say it was?
Our URL was majorleaguebaseball.com, and I defy anybody to spell that. How do you spell the word league? Does anybody know how to spell league? Come on. Is it like tongue? Is it UGE? Is it GUE? I don't know. So, we had to buy MLB.com from a law firm. We had to pay $500,000 to a law firm and give them 6 months promotion on our home page to become MLB.com.
What is that, Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchius?
Yeah.
Was that the...
Yeah, that was a law firm. We don't need
no one can spell
we're
that
done
either.
Promoting them now. We don't need to do this anymore. that deal was over, right? It's a law firm now. I mean, are you getting paid on the side?
That was not a product placement, I promise.
I mean, what are you going to have Ellen come out with her Samsung phone, Shirley, and take a photo? I mean, what the hell? Who's delivering pizza? I mean, come on.
We'll be here soon.
Yeah, it's all right. We had hot dogs downstairs. I know you didn't go there, but those of us who were the unwashed mashes, we were down there with the hot dogs.
Right. No, I'm glad. We were drinking champagne in the back there while you were.
That's what they're paying their good money for.
This was a digital wasteland, pretty much, right? I mean, it was a very nascent, probably very independent, right? You had 30 teams doing their own thing, really not coordinated. Would that
yeah, I mean, every team. Some teams are good. Some teams were less interested in doing it. And so it was a relatively fertile ground, but two things came of that. One was we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, we don't have the time this month to go through the mistakes we made, but we did them at a time when no one really knew that they were mistakes. I mean, now we know. I mean, the internet's evolved. It's become a little bit more expected what we do and should do and can't do. So we made a lot of mistakes. The other thing is that we were able to sort of get in front of it, and occasionally people didn't agree with us, so we kind of said, catch up. If you don't agree with us, catch us and tell us what we're doing wrong. But because we were first, again, based on not my vision, but the vision of the commissioner, we were able to get in front of things and do things first. I mean, I remember, John, when we launched live video in 2002, the critics said 3 things about our live video. It's a baseball game, first people really stream a season and all that. And they said no one will ever watch video on the internet. No one will ever pay for video on the internet. And man, it looks like crap. They were right about the third one. It looked pretty bad. But the first 2 they proved to be dead wrong about. Yeah. And rather than worry about what the critics were saying, we stayed with it, hired really smart people. Certainly I'm not a technician or a technologist at all. We hired really smart people. They figured it out, and we were the first group to ever deliver true high def. Every 400 devices this year for our live game. So, that's only 10 years' time.
You said something about not being a technologist. So let me ask you then, just very simply, what was the appeal of this whole new venture to you personally?
I love baseball. I'm not a great negotiator, and so I was trying to act like I really didn't care about this job. And, I'm just left another high pressure job, and running a publicly traded company, $35 billion. I want to take some time off, my family, that kind of rigmarole. But the opportunity to be in baseball, in technology, in a time when the internet is going to develop into something nobody really recognizes, it's impossible to say no. I'm glad I said yes, and I'm not sure, I hope the commissioner and the owners feel the same way, but it's been a great experience, and I'll tell you, the greatest experience, though, has been not, the technology is great, and what we do for the fans is great, but we have 750 employees now, and that's a great feeling, to have that many employees.
Let's talk a bit just about how this all came together. What was it that the commissioner said to 30 very independently minded, wealthy owners about what would happen if they took all their digital rights and put them in a pool and created a new company?
I think his view then, and I think it remains his view today, is that this is the Pete Roselle moment. Is Pete Roselle, who I'm old enough to know, and I followed, growing up in Wisconsin, obviously I was a Packer fan, and Pete Roselle took all the national money, TV money, that's all we had, there was the only medium that was around, a little bit of radio, and divided it evenly among the teams. Instead of having regional broadcasts where the Packers might get access, small town up in northern Wisconsin, and the Giants, New York Football Giants, as opposed to the other Giants that we all love very much, but the New York Football Giants, instead of them, they might get a lot more. So he said, we're going to centralize it and level the playing field. And he recognizes, as does our commissioner, that what's the most important thing, 2 things matter to a commissioner. One is making sure the owners have a value of their franchise, that they've risked capital, that it increases and grows over time. There are lots of ways to achieve that. But even more important is to make sure that every fan, whether they live in Florida or Wisconsin or New York or California, and whether they root for the A's or the Giants, whoever they root for, is that on April 1st, their team can win. And so competitive balance, which is what Roselle was saying, by equalizing the money, over time we'll have the best chance to equalize performance. And our commissioner believes in that, and I think increasingly almost every owner does too. And so he sold that, saying This is a way to equalize revenue, equalize opportunity, and in the end, that means competitive balance on the field. And we got to have all of our fans think they have a chance to win the pennant and ultimately the World Series on April 1st. That's what every commissioner has to do.
We all feel that way as baseball fans, no matter who we root for, right? That's the great part about spring. We're all born again. Our team's going to win it all this year. And
while you have that feeling, you should be buying tickets. In fact, let's all just take a moment, take your phones out, and feel free to buy some tickets right now. We'll do this every 5 minutes, so the sooner you buy, the sooner we'll be done.
So you come in, new organization, new strategy, something to work with, probably more in some spots than others. What was job one for you when you came into BAM?
Hippocratic oath is everything you do in your life. Do no harm. Do no harm. Understand where you are. Make sure you don't make things worse. Assess your people. Figure out where you want to be, but do no harm. Do not make a step until you understand where you are. And so while the medical community may have had it right in terms of Hippocratic oath, I think every business person alive takes the Hippocratic oath saying, do no harm. And then after you stop doing no harm, then you can say, how do I add value? And the most important thing for us was trying to figure out what kind of people we needed. And that seems kind of stupid, which doesn't seem that odd coming from my mouth, but it is, who do you need? Do you need editorial people who can write? Do you need technologists who can code, whatever that means? Do you need sort of business people who can sell because we're trying to make money? Do you need all the above? Who comes first? And so the fun thing was trying to figure out what we're trying to do. And I started in November. We launched 31 sites on April 1st, 2001, the 30 club sites in MLB.com, because by then we'd bought MLB. Do not say the law firm's name again. By then we had purchased MLB.com, and so we launched 31 sites. And so we had a very short window to launch and create content for 31 sort of identical but different sites.
Did you have to go through 31 approvals and 31 different trials?
No, I mean, every team offered, and still does, their views on what we do. And they make us better by offering us, strategic and helpful hints about, have you thought of this, particularly in the social media realm, but in general, particularly in this part of the world, they are very active and very involved and very helpful in making us better. Back then, there were some clubs that were much more active than others, as I said, who had already had terrific websites. They felt very strongly. Other clubs really had nothing, and so they felt less strongly. But we got a lot of input, and we launched it on April 1st of 2001. And for, a good 20, 25 seconds, the site was up. So worked out pretty damn well.
Great launch.
Yeah, pretty good launch. Pretty good launch.
And then what?
Well, then we went down. Yeah, that was sad. And then we went back up, and then we went down, and it was a pretty brutal first day. The board had hired consultants, and we had suggested that they sort of help us with the infrastructure to get to a certain level. And the consultants built it for a fourth of that level, and the traffic was twice that level. We just had no idea. We didn't know what to expect. The old saying, you don't know what you don't know. We didn't know what traffic was with a homogeneous 31 sites that people could go easily between the Red Sox and the Yankees, as odd as that may seem, or the Giants and the A's, as odd as it may seem. But people do it. Fans do it. They check out what other teams are doing, who's going to play for the other teams. And so the traffic just overwhelmed us.
Is this reminiscent of anything else that has happened more recently, like in the healthcare realm at all?
Yeah. I mean, it was, but unfortunately for the healthcare realm, it was, everyone was watching. We were down, and it was frustrating, and fans who tried to get in the know, but the media did not cover it. I mean, they didn't know, they just didn't cover it then. And so we got away with it. And then at the end of that first season, 2001, we ripped it apart and rebuilt the whole site the way we thought. By then we were 7-8 months wiser. I mean, the way that had been built by that we sort of tagged onto by the consultants is that every club site linked to another club site. So if the A's went down, 29 of their clubs went down, as opposed to independent silos.
So you clearly made it through that early turbulence. When did it become clear to you that MLB Advanced Media could do a lot more for the sport and for the teams as you began to roll this forward?
It's interesting. people in this part of the world talk about the aha moment. Generally they're visionaries and technologists. I mean, you can't imagine how many Steve Jobs might have had in his life. Might be daily for him. I sort of had two aha moments at BAM. The first was the very first day. That day I mentioned our site was sort of like a yo-yo. I got a call from an owner that says, looks great. I talked to him. I never met him in my life. Looks great, Bob. What a great idea. Congratulations. And I want to say, what site are you on? Get off of ESPN.com and come check out our site. I mean, it's grim. But I mean, there was a guy who understood that, yeah, there's ups and downs, and this one day is not going to be perfect, but the idea is right, and stick with it, and you're going to get through this. And, to say that on the first day was pretty gutsy. And I'd say the other aha moment was when we figured out that we were going to be profitable. And that seems, sort of silly now because we make a lot of money for the industry and for the owners as well. We should. We have a lot of valuable rights. But back in 2003, when we broke even, and then 2004 when we started making money, that was an aha moment to everyone in the industry where they said, we've been waiting a little while. We put some money in. They put $77 million in to get us launched. And then when we started making money, we started showing that we were going to return dividends to them. That was an aha moment, that the internet was not just a marketing medium, not some pie-in-the-sky idea, but it was at the time, it was a hardcore business that could make money. And now obviously it's evolved into, it's not a hardcore business anymore. It is basically the business. I mean, you don't even call it the internet anymore. It's how we live. Mm-hmm. But that aha moment in 03 to 04, when we started making money, that BAM became a different company then.
So talk a bit now about what BAM does for the teams today, just on that economic, financial service side on MLB.com.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, URLs sort of are passé. I mean, our content is on Facebook, on Twitter. Obviously, it's, as you mentioned, it's on apps, it's on our apps, it's other people's apps, and then you have something called MLB.com and SFGiants.com and Athletics Baseball or OaklandAthletics.com. And so you have these URLs, but they're becoming almost passé. But on these things where we get roughly 12 to 13 million visitors a day, so in season, it's a busy site, 12 to 13 million visitors. They're doing everything. They're obviously getting scores, they're watching video, but they're also conducting commerce. We will sell this year somewhere between 35 to 40 million tickets online. So if you multiply that out, that's over half the tickets are bought online. Over $1 billion worth of commerce is conducted online just on tickets alone. And then you add in all our other businesses, it's almost $1.9 billion of commerce that's being conducted digitally now. And so it's a vital piece of what every club does. It's the best way to reach your audience. It's the best way to enthuse your audience. And if you do it right, it's the best way to conduct commerce. And trying to blend those two. If you think of the world, a lot of sites are content and a lot of sites are commerce, but not every site's both, where you're trying to tell them what's going on and not charge them anything. But, oh, excuse me, sir, if you do have $10, I'll be glad to sell you a ticket. It's a delicate balance that we try and do, and the clubs are very helpful in that regard. But we do try and do both, and if you add up the tickets and the other things that we sell, it's $1.7, $1.8, $1.9 billion right now in terms of gross revenue it's sold there.
So that's your relationship with the teams. Now let's talk a little bit about your direct relationship with the fans. First of all, you've pointed out, and I think this is just fascinating, that baseball has always embraced new technology, whether it was newsreels in cinema houses, whether it was radio or early black and white broadcast television, cable, pay-per-view. Baseball has always been there first.
Number one.
Why is that?
I think because our game is I think this way. We play more games, which has disadvantages, but I think it has a big advantage in the sense that the fans feel like this is their team. It's not his or her team who owns it. It's our team. It's our Giants. It's our A's. They play so much and they're so replete in the newspapers back in the day and obviously on TV and radio that it's your team. The fans own it. And I think that the bias has always been give it to the people. And, the debates we used to have in baseball, and I remember these, I was a fan at the time, don't put games on TV because fans won't come to the ballpark. They can stay home and watch it. I remember those days. We had a commissioner who testified in Congress that cable TV might be the death of baseball. And 3 years later, we had half our games on cable. I mean, the bias has always been serve the fan and put it on, first on radio, first on TV, first on cable, and now obviously the first in digital. That's in our DNA, and I think it's because the fans feel they own the game. Has downsides when the fans feel they own the team because at times they disagree with what the team is doing. But the upside is they really do feel it. We're not faking it. They feel they own the team, and therefore that's the bias.
Was there ever a fear, did you go through this, cable's going to kill baseball? Did you go through the same thing with video on the internet, that putting video on the internet was going to be very harmful to the sport?
Yeah, we heard, when we started streaming live games, we heard that it would kill local rights, it would kill national TV rights, and that if you put this out there, sort of a distant relative, maybe the argument that if we put it on TV, they won't come to the ballpark. And last year we had 75 million fans come to the games, more than the other leagues combined. We have more games, and so it's expected, but it's not easy to sell 81 home games. But I think, there are a lot of people thought that, and national TV rights have doubled, local rights have tripled. The simple fact is people want this game. They want live sports or near live sports, and we want them to feel like they own the team. Mm-hmm. And you can't own the team if you can't touch it. If you just hear about it once a week, you want to be able to touch it when you can and when it's convenient for you. Even if that's 3 a.m. because you get up because you have a baby screaming or you have a dog who's sick, you got to get up. You want to check in on your team. And that's why commissioner being an owner, maybe being an owner in a small market club like Milwaukee, maybe that's his DNA, but that's sort of what baseball's always been about.
Talk about then, given that relationship and that incredibly solid base to build on, talk about how you decided to go beyond the simple website, the team websites. Even though they were doing all this commerce and selling tickets and providing this connection to the fans, you systematically rolled out service after service, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. How did that occur?
We made two big bets as it relates to baseball. One was video. We just thought that video would work. At the time, broadband penetration was in the 20% in the households.
And quality was really bad, as you were talking about.
Really bad, but we thought broadband would develop and that ultimately video would work. So we bet heavily on that. We built an infrastructure to deliver that, and time proved that worked out well. The other bigger bet we made, and it's obviously trite now, is that we went and hired really good people in wireless, some of whom are in the room tonight, and we stole them from other places, and we said, we need a wireless department. And they were building, these really horrible looking apps on flip phones. This is before the iPhone. I mean, if you can imagine such a time, the iPhone came out in, I think, 06 or 07, and the iTunes Store was a year later. The iTunes Store it came out a year later. But before then, we're carrying flip phones, and we were putting stuff on that. But we thought the nature of baseball, we play every day. You can't go to every game. You can't sit in front of your TV and watch it for 3 hours. But you're between school or synagogue, or you're on your way to your relative's house or a friend's house. You got 3 minutes. You're going to get updated on your phone. So we thought wireless or mobile would be really important for baseball. So we went out and hired really good people and told them to hire really good people. And we were really the first on mobile in terms of our sport. We were certainly the first. We were on the first iTunes Store, the first Google Play Store. We've been half our traffic now is mobile. So that's been our second bet, is that we think that mobile will be the way that the next generation sort of interacts with content. It will all be sort of lap-based or hand-based.
Let's talk about the mobile strategy now. You were very opportunistic early on, thinking about iTunes, specifically the iTunes Store, the content, the apps you could develop for that. Why did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I wish I could say that let me back up. I've been really, I have I still have 2 teenagers. My daughter's 19, going on 29 or 39, whatever. The thing about teenagers is this, since you asked, is that their age they are is the average age, right? They're never 16. They're either 32 or 2. They're never really 16. So my daughter's 19, and she's either 30 or she's 11, but I love her dearly. But I do. I mean, I have a son. I mean, we're all lucky. We're all blessed with children. But I had 2 kids who sort of taught me what was going on. And you could watch what they did, and it's one thing about digital media, you should never draw a conclusion from 2 anecdotes, but this is what kids were doing. And the other thing is, and so I sort of sense what they were doing. I didn't really get it all, but you hire, and this sounds so obvious, but it's hard to do. You hire good people, and they say, here's what's next. So when the stories get written about how, I said we should go to Apple and build on this new device that ultimately turned out the iPad, well, the fact is I didn't get called. Someone in our wireless group got called who they know through Apple to come out and build on the iPad. I didn't, I said sure, but it was other folks who did it. And so, you want to hire scientists, and I don't mean literally people who are, wearing white coats and things like that, but a scientist always wants to find out what's next and what makes things go, but what's next. And so you hire really good people that want that. They want to know what's next. And for a while, and I think for looking forward, Apple and another company really close here, Google, are a lot what's next. And so our wireless group, they use it, they understand it, they're active there, and they want to know what's next. And you don't hire people who say what's last. That's interesting, and that's sort of where I am. What did we do yesterday? These guys said, what's tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it's a fine line, and I'm sure if they were up here, they'd tell you I'm on the wrong side. Occasionally, I'm sure they'd say that. A fine line between executing and making the money and making sure you spend enough time on what's next, where you're bound to fail. But you hire good people. In the wireless group, we've been very lucky. The people are really good. They've been together a long time. And we have 2, where would we be without Steve Jobs? Where would we be? Where would this country be without Steve Jobs, who created a device? I don't care what people say, but the simple fact is the phone, the wireless phone, is your first screen. It is not your second screen. It is your first screen. Yeah. Reality, in some cases, is your second screen. I hate to say good or bad. Sadly, it's true. And so, that's where we are. And it turned out to be great, but it reflects more on people saying this is what we want to do and my sort of saying, okay. But it's not because of any great vision I had.
When you could start to deliver a really great mobile experience on the iPhone, and I don't mean to exclude Android from all of this, it's just that you were very aggressive, and Steve Jobs wanted at bat your amazing app on the iPhone from day one. When you first put that on a mobile platform, what did you start to learn about the way people interact with it and they behave and how they consume it and all the things that you can do once you finally get out there?
You talk about the aha moments, and I said there were only 2, and there really are, but it was interesting. We built a really nice app in an absolute sense and certainly in a relative sense. And when I say we, again, it wasn't anything that I could do. But I use it, and I liked it. But I knew that we're living on the right side of the river when my son, who's not a sports enthusiast, he's a singer and dancer, came home and said, Dad, tell me about this at-bat app. I said, what do you mean? He says, all the kids at school love it. And that's when you know you've broken through, because there's no harsher critic, nobody with less time than a teenage anybody, girl or boy. And so you sort of know when you're broken through. And then we started seeing the numbers. And Apple, again, they were first. We love Google too. Apple has a really good development culture where they love developers, and they say, here, you should do this and make it better. And they're really, it's an iterative process, and they really helped us make our app better.
Well, and I don't think I said it in the introduction, but At-Bat is the all-time highest grossing app of any kind on the iTunes store.
In the sports world. Gaming still beats, but in the sports world. That's what we're told. And until we're told otherwise, we're going to keep repeating it because, a lie well.
Did I make up for that mistake I made earlier? Are we on a little better
a little bit better
here?
ground.
Okay, good.
It depends on how many people bought tickets. But but yeah, it's worked out really well. And the funny thing is that we're like the top grossing app even in the off season because we charge. We're not shy about charging for our content. And we're proud of that. We're proud of the fact we have a free app too. It was downloaded 10 million times last year, and 1 million people converted to a pay.
10 million times.
Yeah, we'll be downloaded more than that this year. We're lucky. We have a game that people love, and our job is to give them every opportunity. Again, 24 hours a day, any corner of the globe. If you want baseball, our job is to give you the very best we can for whatever you have. 30 seconds, we're going to do it.
So we've talked about the history of BAM, and then we've talked about your relationship with the fans. Let's talk a little bit about BAM as a technology platform. Just the statistics about the amount of content that flows through your infrastructure on any given day or week, those are pretty phenomenal. Can you just give us a sense of the platform that BAM operates now on a daily basis?
This is all Greek to me. It's terabytes and petabytes and things like that. I mean, these are words I do crosswords. I'd never heard of these words. But we move. If you think about what baseball is, baseball has a lot of stats and records, and there's a lot of data, and people think that's it. Or consumers, come in and buy things. They think consumer data is really it, but it's really not. It's not any of those things. If you think about a baseball game, and we play 15 of them a day, every time the pitcher moves his arm, we're capturing 10s, 20s, 30s amounts of pieces of data. What he did, speed, all that stuff, what happened, who moved where, everything's being captured video form. And it's terabytes of data every day that we have to store some and throw away the rest. But it is massive amounts of data that we can't let people hack. We try not to. We can't let people, if it's an encrypted stream because it's a pay service like MLB.TV, we have to keep, make sure the subscribers are in, the people who didn't pay are out. And so it's a large amount of data, but it's also, a lot of it's free and a lot of it's pay, so you have to separate those two. And that's why now with 750 employees, we probably are 350 technology people. I mean, if you had told me even 12 years ago that you're going to be 700 people, I would have said no. But if you said we're going to have 350 technology people, it's absurd. But we are a technology company much more so than a content company.
I was amazed to learn that you are the streaming backbone for ESPN. How did that come to pass? Like you had a chance to take a sip of water and then you can...
we live in a funny world. ESPN's are by far our toughest competitor. And we compete over eyeballs, advertisers, fans, commerce. We compete on everything. And yet, ironically, they're our best partner. They pay us a lot of money for baseball content that they put on their website and their various digital media. They pay us for all these things. They are respectful of our content. They teach us things, but they're a formidable competitor too. And so it surprised people when we said we built this huge back end. You think about what we stream, 2,500 live games a year. We're doing home and away feeds. That's 5,000 live games with a lot of concurrency. It isn't just 5,000 spread evenly. Saturdays, there's 15 live games that might all overlap. So you got to build a big farm. It occurred to ESPN that we might be. They were not a technology company. They are a media company. So this is something we could do for them, much more inexpensive than they. And the ironic part was that despite the fact we compete, they knew we would never, ever do anything to harm their business because we respect each other too much. And so I think that opened the eyes of a lot of other potential partners of ours to say, well, golly, if they're willing to do this for a competitor, I guess they'll do it for anybody. And our view is, in terms of live streaming, which is what ESPN does with us, is the more live streaming out there, the better off we all are. If they have a great product, people will come to look for our product, and we think that'll help. Rising water lifts all boats. We're very committed to that, and ESPN's taught us a lot, and maybe we've helped them in a little way too. But it's in the end, the fan gets served.
And to set this clip up, this is, I believe, this game's the bottom of the ninth, yes. And is it the tying or the winning run is on second base?
It turned out to be neither.
Okay, right.
Not to give away the ending, but it turned out to be neither.
Yeah.
But it was
two outs, bottom of the ninth.
It was a tying run.
Yeah, tying run. Okay. So let's see, John, if you can play this clip.
Fly ball, shallow left center. Hayward coming, dives, did he catch it? Yes! What a grab by Hayward to end the game. Holy smokes. Look how far Hayward had to go.
So this is interesting, this first step.
Completely laid out right off the top of the turf.
John, is there anybody who can pause it there?
A big league play.
So I'll just review it. What you may not have seen.
Turner hits one in the air, left center field.
All right, that's Justin Hayward.
Justin Hayward,
center fielder for the Braves. So what it just showed is that his jump for that ball was 2/100ths of a second. So that's faster than a blink. 2/100ths of a second. That's not a jump. That's Wizard of Oz stuff. That's unheard of. 2/100ths of a second. What that also showed is that efficiency route. Now, this is a point to point. You're here and the ball's there. It's not like you're running the bases. The fastest route is a straight line. His route was 97% efficient. That is, he took almost no step out of a straight line to that ball. And that path also showed his speed in those 80 feet was 18.5 miles an hour. And he caught the ball. You saw he caught the ball. He caught the ball with a half an inch off the ground. So you can just understand that had he taken one step to the right or one to the left instead of perfectly straight, had he only hit 17 miles an hour instead of 18, or had his jump in 0.1 seconds instead of 0.02, he wouldn't have caught the ball. And so now you're just going to have the ability to have, if you can pause it there. It's absurd. And compare him to Reed Johnson. I mean, that's still a phenomenal jump, 5/100ths of a second. Top speed and his acceleration, so he didn't get to his top speed faster. He had 2.5 feet, he had 2 feet more to go, but Reed Johnson, run the clip now. For those you, if you can, please. For those you can tell me where Reed Johnson is, start any time. You don't even see the guy. You don't even see, there he is. Nice catch, he's saying, right?
I was backing you up. I was there for you, Justin. That's what he's saying.
And so, there he was. For baseball fans and for casual fans, I mean, certainly for the seam heads, this is going to be great. And they're going to be able to argue about jumps and range and all this other stuff. But for the average fan, which I am, and that's our approach to everything, they're going to sit there and they're going to go, wow. I mean, you see a home run, you see some guy hit the ball 390 feet, you get kind of impressed. But we have another clip, which is not here, where a ball came in at 97 miles an hour. Prince Fielder, who now plays for the Rangers, but at this time played for the Tigers, turned on it, caught it, basically you're catching on your bat and delivering it back, and hit it back at 98 miles an hour. I mean, so you can just imagine the mass and acceleration that he had to take a ball coming at him, catch it on a bat, and get rid of it. I mean, it's just, and you can see this guy's at 88. Prince Fielder did it at 98 miles an hour. So what that's going to give analysts and fans is something to argue about and say, who's better, who's this, should he have caught it, should he not have caught it? And in the game of baseball, that's what we do. We debate about who's better, who's not better. And now we're going to have, for the first time, empirical evidence that will, as we say, we think this will inform debates. We don't think it'll finish debates. And if we have our way, it'll start more debates.
I want to get to some audience questions here in a second because we have some amazing questions. But before we do that,
Are any of them from the people I work with?
There's a question about law firm names in here.
But there's no question about annual bonuses?
I'm going to bury that one.
Okay, good.
Let's talk about, you're implementing...
You're making a good comeback, by the way.
You're implementing instant replay this year, which has never been used in the way that it's going to be. Talk, first of all, about how it's going to be used and how BAM is going to be instrumental in the implementation.
You think about our game. Our game in golf really don't have clocks. Sounds nice, but games get to be a little long. The pace of the game matters. And so you're trying to get a game moving quickly, and then you combine that with, we have people, human beings, making calls that are literally bang, bang plays. As you just witnessed, this is a game not of inches, but of fractions of inches. Not a game of seconds, but fractions of a second. If you all had to stand at first base, and if we showed you 10 plays at first base, where it's a fraction of a second, you'd be amazed and impressed with how good our umpires are. That said, we make mistakes. That's why you have replay. And so we've been reluctant, because of the history of the game, to introduce technology advances inside the game. But now the commissioner, I think, is wisely, and his advisors have, and it wasn't my recommendation, obviously. Others who were on the field, Joe Torre and Tony La Russa, 2 Hall of Fame managers going to the Hall of Fame this year, they recommended it, and so we're expanding replay. So now we're going to have replay where managers can challenge, where the umpires can go and check it out. They don't see it, because in the end, you want it right. Even with 162 games and regressing to the mean, you still want it right. And so now at BAM, at our headquarters, we built a facility where we'll have real umpires sitting in our facility with all these screens. And if there's a replay review that wants to be challenged either by the manager or the umpire didn't see it and they want help, by the time they go to a headset behind home plate, we will have seen it, the umpires will have seen it, know what happened, seen 3 or 4 angles, and said, stick with your call or reverse your call, and it will be over, we think, in 30 seconds, and it will go very quickly, and actually, in some ways, speed the game up. But in the end, managers and umpires, certainly the players, they just want the calls right. And it's funny how calls come back to haunt you. You know, I coached Little League for 7 years, and no matter what level of baseball you play, walks kill you. No matter what, walks come back to haunt you. And by the same token, in our game, you want the call right. Even a bang-bang play at first in the 9th inning with nobody out, you want the call right. And so giving the managers the right to challenge and giving umpires the right to review it if they don't think they have it right will help the game.
Well, and with you having to capture every pitch of every game, every night for 162 games, you've got to have pretty good technology. So let's go to the questions here. This is a really great one. You've sort of touched on it, but this gets to a slightly different issue. How do you maintain the MLE brand standards creatively across so many devices and so many interfaces and so many experiences?
You know, it's interesting. We have really smart people who have a feel for what it should look like, and we have different sort of brand treatments on our phones and versus our iPads versus our websites. But the one thing that we're pretty consistent on is always says MLB.com, and I guess our point of view is MLB.com we think is a brand, and it hopefully stands for reliability, technology, forward-facing, and something that is fan-friendly. So every one of our brands that we have, and no matter what the device is, always says MLB.com with the silhouetted batter to try and let people know this is the great game of baseball, but it's brought to you by a technology company called MLB.com. That's what we try and do. And so far it's worked because I think people know what they're getting. As opposed to just saying at MLB, which a lot of people can do, we want to say MLB.com, which we think marries the great content with what I'm biased when I say it, but what I hope is great technology.
I first came to understand the profound change you were bringing to baseball when I was living outside the United States, and so I'm glad someone asked this question. What percentage of your audience is international?
Roughly 10% is international. It's split, you know, roughly 3% is Asian, 3% is Latin, and then the rest is spritzed around other parts of the world.
And what, if any, content is localized and or translated?
We translate every game in Japan, and we translate almost every game into Spanish. For the World Series, we'll translate that into 7 languages. But for every season game, we do Japanese, we do Mandarin, and we do Spanish, right, for almost every game now.
This is an interesting question. What are you or will you be doing at all for minor league baseball?
You know, we do the same thing for minor leagues that we do for major leagues. We centralized all the rights, and we stream video every AAA, AA, and single A game starting this year. It's been AAA, then AA. You keep expanding it. So we stream every game. My nephew is in single A ball, so that's why we went down to single A this year. Hopefully he'll end up in AA. We'll see. But you know, 40 million fans go through the turnstiles for minor league baseball, and even if you live near a town with a minor league team, it's a lot of fun. The prices are reasonable. It's a great family night, and it's good baseball. And so we do that. We do that now. And the issue we have in baseball is we don't have college the way football and basketball do. Basketball less so now because it's 1 year and done. But we don't have that proving ground. So we need, for reasons of marketing, to make our minor league system and our minor league players much more commonplace. And so that's why we did the deal with the minor league organization. It's worked out really well, and we're delivering a lot. We're managing basically the same business for them that we do for Major League Baseball, and our job is to make sure the fans are happy with that. And that business, you know, sort of started 5 years ago and is really growing now. I've always been a big fan of minor league baseball, but now that my nephew's here, I'm really a big fan of minor league baseball.
When do you anticipate people being able to stream local broadcasts without blackouts on MLB TV?
Number one complaint we have is blackouts. And, you know, business model's tough. But right now, the cable companies who basically are the backbone of local rights want exclusivity, and we understand that. You know, other leagues have said the NBA has for 5 years allowed in-market streaming, what we call in-market streaming, no blackouts, and it hasn't happened. And so I would only say this, that in order to get it done, it has to be the right economic model. It has to make sense for people who are spending hundreds of millions for rights. It has to make sense for the clubs. It has to make sense for us. And I would only say that when it happens, when we reach an understanding and we work on it every year, and I'm more optimistic than I've ever been, but the difference between us and what others have done is when it happens, it will happen. We won't just grant the rights and see what happens. When it happens, BAM will be streaming in-market games the next day. And so our commitment is to find the right answer, but not just solve the problem, say, well, it's done. Like another league where they said, you have the rights and no games got streamed. We want to make sure people commit to actually streaming the games. And so it's taken a while. And frankly, if you had to do demerits for BAM and for me, that would be, on the list. But it's one thing we'd like to finish, and we're working on it.
Beyond what you're doing now in mobile, are you planning anything special for the in-stadium, in-seat experience in particular? Yeah,
I mean, the fact is that everyone uses their phone 24/7, so we're not trying to put a TV screen in the back of the seat in front of you. We're trying to make the phone more valuable. And we've embarked upon a $300 million investment in our stadiums to make sure Wi-Fi and distributed antenna system, what we call DAS, basically so your phone works. You can make a phone call and get video. And we're worked with AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and Sprint. And we should have 12 parks done by opening day, and we should have every park done by 2015, so your phones will work. And then our job is to deliver content to the phone. So I think our goal is to make sure when you're in the stadium, not only have the panorama of, I would say, the best athletes and the best live content you could ever imagine, but you will actually have better content on your phone than you will on your couch. Really? We have to make the game and the technology at the game even better than what you get on your couch. You'll still get great stuff on your couch, but for instance, replay, we'll do a much better job of replay inside the stadium than we will on the couch. And we're trying to reward people for taking time to come visit with us.
Are people going to see that first in the stadium before they see it at home on the couch?
They definitely will. They definitely will.
So the groans and boos will begin very early on, way before we hear them at home.
We're hopeful. We're hopeful there'll be some groans. I mean, the fact of the matter is that at a home team, what's going to happen. If it goes against the home team, we'll get groans and boos.
Yeah.
But the thing about American fans is if they see it, they're not happy. But if they can see clearly that the ball was trapped or that this happened, Americans are pretty fair. They're pretty fair people. Yeah, they have favorite teams, but they're gonna be pretty fair if they see it pretty clearly that this call should have been reversed or it should be this. We're pretty optimistic about the fans.
I'm going to ask one final question from the audience, and then I'm going to save the last question for me. How has the growth in fantasy baseball affected what you do at BAM and the way you think about it?
I hate to go through my demerits again, but fantasy baseball, fantasy sports launched with baseball in 1981. Fantasy baseball is where you pick a team, but your team is not the Giants or the A's. It's players from every team. It's used to be called rotisserie because you'd actually spin around and pick a player out, and you're worried about how their individual achievement affected your overall team. So we were the first to do it. I played it as a not a kid, but as a whatever I was in the 80s. And now football has 5 times the number of players we do. And baseball fantasy is really complicated. And to win at baseball fantasy, you have to be really smart and dedicate a lot of time to it. Whereas football, you do it for 3 minutes a week, you pick your team, and you're ready to go. And so you have to be, I guess, smart is better than dumb, generally. So you have a better chance to win, but it's really fast. And so what we need to do in baseball is make fantasy fun, simple, and fast. And the games that we used to call fantasy baseball, where roughly 5 million people play it, they're really complex. You have to be a general manager. You have to play it every day. It gets to be time-consuming, and time is probably the most valuable commodity we have. So we've tried to invest and create new games. And the game we're most excited about, and I remember this, is RBI Baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Came out in the 90s, arcade-style game, died in the 90s. And we're relaunching it this year as a mobile and as a console game, RBI Baseball. And we're excited about it. It's really a simple game, and people will go wild over it because that's simple sometimes is best.
Yeah, yeah. All right, one final question. We were talking before we came out tonight about the generational difference between the way our kids think about media, consume media, and the way we have always traditionally thought about it, especially when it comes to live anything on television, but live sports in particular. If you look in your crystal ball and you think about the future of live sports in this environment we've been talking about tonight, what do you think the future looks like?
Yeah, I certainly have no idea, but since you asked, I'll try and answer it. But I would just say this, again, I have 2 teenagers. I'm amazed at how happy they are to watch anything on a mobile phone. It's a small screen. I mean, and I grew up with a TV. Admittedly, initially it was a black and white TV, but I grew up with a TV. And I love the iPad. But they're happy with the phone. They can watch anything on the phone. And they can watch it for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes. And those who think that the phone is too small or that we're all going to get the phablets or whatever the next bigger size phone, I'm sure that there'll be an audience for everything. But they want to do that. Second of all, they demand and expect that when they want to watch it, you'll give it to them. They will not, they just won't come to the couch and watch it when it's on. Now that's, maybe the playoffs in baseball and obviously the World Series and things like that, but increasingly they expect to be able to watch it when they want to watch it. And that is going to change all the economic models. And I would just leave it this way. They don't call it the internet. They don't call it new media. This is just life. This is what they do. They don't know the word. We are, my generation is so on the wrong side of this. The lexicon, if you actually try and type the word internet, it will capitalize it for you on your spell checker. I mean, like the internet is some special thing. It's a proper noun. It's a place. It's nothing. The internet is life. It's air. And that's the way they view it. The notion that people are advertising, come here because we have Wi-Fi, they look at that and just go, are you on drugs? I mean, of course you have Wi-Fi. I mean, and it's laughable, but it will, we won't recognize it. They won't, everything will have internet connectivity. I use the word there. Everything will have it. We'll all have connectivity. Connectivity to them is air. And that's why we're wiring the stadiums. You can't get connected, it won't happen. Planes, if you can't get connected, you will fly a different airline. And that, it's just the way it's going to be. And again, I said this, I'll repeat it. If you happen to be, if you happen to have young children or young grandchildren and they're living in this time and everyone's, down on America for this, you live here, you live anywhere. Any kid can do anything now. And, you have the internet to thank for it.
One of the things I think we've learned about you tonight is you're a fan first.
Yep.
And I think that's partly why you are so incredibly good at what you do. Thanks for coming and sharing all of this tonight, and have a great season.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thanks,
your
Bob.
time.
MLB Advanced Media is quietly leading the digital transformation of professional sports. There are hundreds of stories like this at the Computer History Museum. Join us next time for the Computer History Museum presents Revolutionaries.